Hey guys, so I actually did a Chromie video and then I realized that there was something that I messed up, so we're going back through. Chromie is getting a rework, and it's such a large rework. People were talking about the idea of reworks and redesigns, and they said that after our last rework, people were wondering why they didn't really change that much on the hero, and Blizzard kind of came out and said, hey, we're going to be doing reworks and redesigns a lot more. Reworks are going to be essentially just major number changes to ranges to essentially large enough number changes that changes the playstyle of the hero, maybe some moving around of talents, and then redesigns are where they're going to be actually changing what abilities do. Chromie is getting a hero redesign. There are the basic playstyle of the hero is still pretty similar, but a lot of her abilities do very different things. So let's get right into it and start talking about the abilities. And I will be showing Chromie in her new skin, so you will be able to also see all of her new animations. So to start off, her Q is pretty similar to what it was before, except for you start out with a Mimic. So you can see that there's a Mimic that spawns immediately. You don't need to complete a quest. You don't need any talents, right? And the next thing about this is that her Mimic also copies her auto attack, her basic attack. And so you also will notice that you're going to be doing a little bit more damage. Her Mimic copies 50% of the damage, as well as for the basic attacks and the Qs that you're going to be firing off. The next thing that you can see about it is that it hits the first enemy. Rather than the first enemy hero, it hits the first enemy. Well, there's a lot of pros and cons to this. Let's say, for example, the Arthas is right up here. I fire my Q, and I hit a minion instead of Arthas. That can be really, really frustrating. But there are things that are really good about it. The fact that you can do camps rather quickly with the fact that you're summoning minions, and your minions are allowed to, or your Q's allowed to hit the camps. You can do camps rather fast. Much faster than Chromie used to be able to do them. And you can see I'm only using one ability right now. You can do it much faster, but we'll talk about her other abilities later. But yeah, you can see you can do camps rather quickly. So that's the cool part about the about her Q, is that while there are parts of it that are a little frustrating, there are parts that are really good. I ended off a game recently with Chromie at like 200,000 siege damage because you can also be just poking towers in lane. So whenever you're just sitting in lane, you can just throw a Q or two because it has no mana cost really. I mean, a 20 mana cost, and you can just destroy towers really quickly. So it's a really cool thing for... It's kind of a plus and minus. You gain more siege damage, but it will be harder to land your abilities on the targets you're trying to land them on. Let's get into her next ability, her W. So her W now has vector targeting. Vector targeting means that you place it, and then you can change the position of it. So you can see wherever my mouse goes is going to change the position. I can't make it wider, and I can't make it smaller. So similar to Gul'dan's E, where it fires off, fires off, fires off, it is an ability that you can catch someone who's running away, and it can be very powerful. But unlike Gul'dan's E, you can use it, say this is chasing me, I can use it this direction, start running away, and as they're chasing me, they take more damage. So, it also, unlike Gul'dan's, is you can't spread it out or put it together. It's always going to be slightly overlapping each other. So the better you get with it, the more likely you're going to get that overlap damage to where two of the strikes are going to hit like one tower or something. So it's really good for wave clear, I will say. Like, whenever I was getting in lane, I would always just kind of place it like this, do a bunch of damage, and strike through minions. And you can see how it quickly does blow through waves, and it's just a very efficient way to deal with those. So I do like that she's getting a little bit more of a mage feel, and so that's a pretty cool one. It's got a rather long cooldown, but it is pretty decent. On to Time Trap. Time Trap's getting a lot of changes. So the first change that Time Trap's getting is the fact that you place a Time Trap, and it doesn't immediately activate. Instead, you have to press your trait to detonate it. You detonate it, and then it time stops, and then you can use your combo and do a bunch of damage, right? So that's essentially how Time Trap works. The next thing that's changed on Time Trap is that you can use Time Trap on allies and yourself, giving yourself a personal ice block, assuming that you can predict where things are going to happen. Because if you see that, like, you keep getting dove on by a Genji, then you can be, like, firing your abilities off, and then you see that the Genji's kind of coming around here, and you place that there, and then right as the Genji shows up, you just time trap yourself, and then let your team get closer to you, or wait until you use your next ice block. So those are her 3 major abilities. As for her passive, she no longer has the bonus damage from auto attacks after landing a Q, and she still has her 2-level earlier talents. Let's get on to her talents. Once again, for the first time, this makes it to where you get your Sandblast quest, and when you hit your Sandblast quest, it makes it to where you will get the minions, an extra minion. Now, the cool part about this is that you have the minion ahead of time. So because you have a minion ahead of time, you can get your stacks faster as long as you're doing it decently. You can see how with 2 people, we're getting 2 stacks twice as fast. Then we complete the quest, and we can have 3 people. And it adds to a lot of DPS, and it adds to a lot of burst. So it works in really any build that you want to use it on. Reset talents, we go to deep breathing. Deep breathing is a quest, and it stacks up pretty quickly now that your W has multiple strikes, because not only can you strike something 3 times or multiple times, there's a angle we can hit this to where we can hit. There we go. That's it. You get a stack here, 2 stacks there. You see what I'm saying? So I got multiple stacks twice. So you can actually stack up rather quickly, either 1 per strike, or you can get lucky and get kind of the double strike on a couple of these, like right there. Strike, 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 strike. And it's just like, so you can get your stacks really, really fast if you're good with this, and if there's multiple enemies that you can strike off of. Then vision radius doubles, and you're able to see so much more. I don't know if this is going to be that good of a talent, but it's pretty decent. Time Walker's Pursuit is always good. 5% more spell damage, and the ability to reveal areas is nice on Chromie, because then you can hit people from far away because she has very long range. Hasn't really changed, though, so we're going to stick with, once again, we're going to complete quests. Now onto this tier is all trap related. So you can get your big traps, or you can get your multiple traps at level 2 now, but remember, they don't activate on their own, and when you detonate it, detonates them, all of them. So it's not really that great of a thing anymore, because the only thing that's kind of good about it is you can place a bunch of traps, and then you can lock down like an area at a time, kind of like a ley line, because they won't really be like predicting it. So say, for instance, we got all 3 of these, and we went trap here, and then like a trap here or something, and the enemies are like coming through this area, and then you guys are right here, and they kind of get all like this. You just drop them all, you detonate them all, and then you've kind of ley lined their team, and you just go through and start hitting them with stuff. So it's pretty interesting, but I don't think it's the one that I would usually be picking, as there is a talent here that makes it to where if you get an enemy, they lose 20 armor, and if you get an ally, they gain 20 armor. So you can ice block yourself, or you can ice block an ally, and when the ice block ends, you have 20 armor. Then if you can time trap an enemy, then your next set of abilities will burst and do more damage, which is pretty cool. We have one that makes it to where you can slow enemies and give movement speed. Same deal, you trap someone and your team gets out, or you trap someone and you can kill an enemy. Pretty straightforward. For burst, we're probably going to be picking up the armor reduction. Bronze Talons now is over 5 seconds, and it also makes it to where it buffs your minions. So if you pick up Bronze Talons and we grab minions, you can see that the auto attacks for the minions are critting as well. So it's a pretty cool technique for sustained damage. Then on to the next one, Mobius Loop. Lowers the cooldown and increases the mana cost. As we saw earlier, you can hit a lot of things, like hit twice, hit twice, hit twice, right? So assuming that you hit all of those, I got 5 hits. That means that we're essentially reducing cooldowns by 7.5 seconds. So I cut the cooldown in half if you can aim your W pretty well. And you're also gaining back 40 mana times 5. That's 200 mana back on something that can take 75 mana. So it can be a really powerful tool. I don't know, again, how popular W build is going to be, but it is interesting. And then Proper Greeting makes it to where it's pretty much your Executioner talent. If you deal damage to stunned, rooted, or slowed enemies, you do 25% more damage for 5 seconds. So you only need to hit stunned, rooted, or slowed enemy once, and you have that bonus damage for 25 seconds. The cool part about this is that it's just damage, which means that if you say you're following up like an ETC or something, if you auto attack something that's stunned, then you get the buff, and then you can fire off all of your abilities and do all that burst. So it is kind of neat, and it will be used for burst builds. On to level 8, Slowing Sands is essentially the same as what it was before. You place it out, deals does mana per second, and then the longer it's out, the bigger the slow is. Temporal Loop, on the other hand, is a little bit different. What's going to happen now is it's going to do the same thing it did before, but it's going to decrease your cooldowns. So what happens is you have Temporal Loop, you fire off your abilities on a target, then you Temporal Loop them, you can fire off another Q. Sorry, let me toggle cooldowns really quick so you can see what this actually looks like. So what you can do is you can fire off your abilities, fire off a Q, use your Temporal Loop, fire off your Q, and then as they're coming back, you can fire off your W and your Q again. So a full burst combo could be something like 5,000 damage to a target that's not expecting it, and that's without even getting the rest of the talents or completing or doing any reasonable amount of comboing. So you can do a lot because it decreases your cooldown, or it increases your regen or your cooldown regeneration by 500%. And it's 500% faster, so it's actually 6 times faster, or 6 times your regular speed. So all of your cooldowns are 1/6 of what they usually are, which makes it to where you can fire off 2 or 3 Qs per the temporal loop, as well as still have one available by the time they go. So you can pretty much fire off 1 W before you use your ult, and then you can fire off 1 Q, and then during your Q you can fire off technically 5 Qs, and then fire off 1 more as they come back. So a very, very powerful talent, maybe nerfed in the future. Level 11, they got rid of Bye-Bye, which was kind of a noob trap talent, but we won't really get too far into that. Most people said that timeout was the way to go, and here and there had its pros and cons. Gnome Speed Ahead is the new one that they've added. So what Gnome Speed Ahead does is it makes it to where after casting Sandblast, you gain 20% movement speed and 200% health and mana regen. Guys, you do not have to land Sandblast, just after casting it. So if you ever need to get away from someone, you fire off a Sandblast and walk away. And if you ever need just more health and regen, you just keep throwing off Sandblasts every 3 seconds. Because it has a 3-second cooldown, you can pretty much just never stop casting Sandblast during team fights. You're always going to regen enough mana back to be perfectly fine. It's a really powerful talent, and it's going to be very competitive with the other talents for sure.
Choose a talent.
On to the level 14 talents. All of these are essentially the same as what they were before. Shifting Sands, the more you land your Q, the more spell power you get. Just remember that this needs to be hit on a hero to stack up. However, the duration is refreshed when an enemy is damaged. So there's pros and cons about this. So now you can only stack on heroes, which is going to make it harder to stack, but you can keep the stacks by hitting anything, which means it'll be easier to keep the stacks. So again, pros and cons, playstyle change really. Fast forward is the same as what it was before. If it travels at least 70% and hits a hero, cooldowns reduced. That'll be a little bit hard to land off. Quantum Overdrive, you activate it, get 25% spell power for 10 seconds. So we'll be picking up Shifting Sands. And then let's talk about the upgrades. So the Slowing Sands upgrade does not remove your mana cost anymore, and which is probably better because you can keep your mana forever with the regen on that. Instead, it's going to lower their spell armor. So if you're in a sustained damage build and you want to lock down an area, you can lower the spell power or the spell armor and do much more damage. Stuck in a Loop allows you to, it triggers it twice and also makes it to where the cooldown keeps going for an additional 3 seconds. So essentially, if you use Stuck in a Loop, that's 6 seconds of a sixth of your cooldown. So you can essentially fire off 12 Sandblasts over the course of a Stuck in a Loop. That's very, very powerful. Piercing Sands allows you to pierce all enemies with Sandblast, which means that if you're going a Q build, you can go through all minions and you can actually wipe out like an entire wave with this in Q build. So let's, I'm going to show you really quick. We're actually going to go Q. Doesn't matter what we go here. Let's go Q. Let's go, why not? Sandblast, Sandblast. And then we're going to be picking up the Pierce. We're going to go complete quests. And we're just going to fire off a couple of these down so that we can get our minions. And let's just get one more. Actually, they're both here. Watch this Q. Kills everything, right? And so let's toggle cooldowns. Kills a whole wave. So when you get Pierce, it's actually really, really powerful for wave clear. And it's just brutal. And then no one can stop you from getting, like, a structure, too. Because if enemies try to get in your way, you just wipe the entire minion wave. So it has its definite purposes, and it's pretty powerful. I mean, we'll show one more wave really quick once we get there. Okay, so now just watch this whole wave. Just dead. I mean, oddly enough, that one got through, but yeah, it just melts through it. It's really, really powerful. So that is one of the level 18 talents. Let's get all the way back up to 18 again. And now is Blessing of the Bronze, which is arguably her best talent at level 18. And a lot of people are debating the uses for this. So I've played with and against Chromie's quite a bit, and almost everyone's been picking this talent just to see what it does. And what we've found is there's certain heroes that are really, really good with this. Heroes that already have forms of cooldown reduction or cooldown removals, because then everything's just recharging faster and you're using abilities. The 10% movement speed also makes it where you can kind of get away from anything. I was playing as ETC one game, and I was kind of going like 1v4 after we wiped, and we were just kind of messing around a little bit as Chromie was just doing a camp while I was on the enemy side of the field, and there was like absolutely no way the enemies could catch me because I would run faster than them, which means they had to mount up, and when they mounted up, I walked back to him, he did a W, and then I ran away. And it was absolutely impossible for them to catch me. My cooldown for my E was so low that I was able to keep myself healed up the entire time. So I could pretty much, as an ETC, I was able to delay 4 people for like 2 whole minutes while our team respawned, grabbed camps, got ready for the next objective, and I was in no danger whatsoever. Just giving certain heroes cooldown reduction is almost too good. People were messing around with this with like Lucio with the Q talent that lowers the cooldown of your Q, and they were pretty much hitting, like, bumping back people repeatedly over and over and over. I saw this being really effective on Deckard Cain to be able to get more more potions out and be able to get more roots and stuns out. I mean, it's a really powerful talent, and we don't even know how powerful it is until we see people playing it more. There's going to be a hero that this is going to be absolutely ridiculous on, and just haven't figured it out yet. Just someone that, I mean, I even wonder about like a cloned Abathur getting his basic abilities, because they only have basic abilities, and you're cloning people with really strong basic abilities. So, and that extra movement speed would be nice. I mean, you already have 10% movement speed. It doesn't stack, so I guess that wouldn't really affect it. But it is a very, very powerful talent. So those are Chromie's new talents. Now, I've played her quite a lot, and she's interesting. I've definitely found that there's at least 2 baseline builds that you can go. So let's talk about the baseline builds, and then we'll talk about what you're going to be going from there. So the first build is some form of burst build. And with a form of a burst build, you either need Q talent or you need Time Walkers. Let's go Time Walkers for the people that are used to that. You go the removal of armor, then you go with proper greeting. And then, well, here's the thing about this talent, actually. If you're going to go burst, the majority of the time you're going to be going proper greeting anyways. But proper greeting, and then if the enemies have a cleanse or if they don't have a cleanse. Because slowing sands with proper greeting is still going to allow you to blow up people that are hit with your trap. Because essentially what's going to happen is, let's say they have cleanse, this is the build you're going to go. You're going to place a trap out, you're going to wait until they get in the area of that trap, and then it's going to be pretty simple. You're going to pop the trap, use your R, then use your W, and use your Q. And you'll be doing a good chunk of burst damage. Now, we also didn't have our second Q up, and if we would have had our second Q up, we would have done more damage, but we did enough damage that we could have killed an enemy Chromie right there. It's as simple as that. We don't even have all of our talents. So you can kill an assassin Even if the enemies have a cleanse, you just blow them up by just being in the range of your time trap, popping your slowing sands, and immediately killing them. It doesn't really matter what you do in a blow-up build. Usually what happens in a blow-up build is you go a timeout. However, I have seen people use here and there just to get their clone in position. So say, for instance, your clone's over here, and you have a trap, and you see that someone's about to walk in your trap. Instead of firing a Q to get your clone over here, some people will actually do this. Why is it not working? Why is this not working? That was so weird. They'll get their clone closer. That was really odd. The character kept walking up to it, but didn't actually activate it. Anywho, I don't think that's really worth it. I would rather go timeout or gnome speed ahead, and then just fire off another Q so you can get it in range, and then use that. So that's really what I do there. Level 14 in a blow-up build, you're going to be running Quantum Overdrive, and for the level 18, you don't need to go with this. However, this would add up a little bit. The only problem is that you're already removing 20 armor. So unless you're going to keep your slowing sands out up to the 30, it's not really worth it. So with the blow up build, I would just be picking up Blessing for the Bronze just to give your team stuff. So you can blow up one person and then your team gets all of the other benefits. So the way this build would kind of work is, let's complete the quest so we have the extra damage. Let's get a minion that's kind of nearby. And then what's going to happen is you're going to pop your trap. Then you're going to pop Slowing Sands, and you're going to pop Quantum Overdrive, or one of those in whatever order you want to. Then you're going to simply fire off your abilities, and just watch how much burst is available from this. We go Trap, Slowing Sands, 3, and then WQ, Auto Attack. And that's essentially what you're going to look at for that 3,600 damage. That's enough to kill any assassin, and they're going to be waking up with the slow, and your team might also follow up. I was following up all of our Chromie time traps when I was playing with her, and pretty much we were getting kills left and right. So that's one variation of the blow-up build. Another variation of the blow-up build is going a Q variation, followed by still the same thing here. You're going to be picking up Bronze Talons, and then you're going to be picking up Temporal Loop, and you're also going to be picking up Gnome Speed Ahead, as well as the Spell Power, and you're going to be picking up the, it doesn't really matter at level 20, but in this particular case, we're going to be going Piercing Sands. So you're going to get your clones. Oh, hold on, let me complete quest. You're going to get your clones. So we've got our 3 clones. Let's toggle cooldowns for a second. And essentially how this is going to work is, if your enemies don't have cleanse, what you're going to do is you're going to try to get yourself in a position where you can hit someone for a good chunk of damage, right? Then you're going to fire this off once. You're going to do your W, pop your R, fire off a Q, and then when they return, you're going to fire off a W and a Q. And if you can see 7,651 damage, all you have to really do is land 1 or 2 Qs and you're good to go. And even if we didn't hit that middle Q, right? Let's say we landed the first Q, hit them with a good chunk of damage, and then we fired off an ult. I mean, even if we just did an ult in this build, let's reset or toggle cooldowns for a second, and let's just do an ult. We do an ult. Let's W, Q, auto attack, right there. 2 auto attacks. You do the same damage as the burst build, but this build also has more sustained damage. So if you look at this build, whenever we're firing, we're doing way more sustained damage, as well as we do have the same burst potential as the other build had. Plus the fact that you do have the small possibility. Let's say, for example, someone does get CC'd and you can fire off an ability to hit him with everything, then pop an R. You're doing like 7,000 damage, you kill a tank. So if you can follow up even 1 CC on an enemy tank, you can pretty much kill any hero in the game. So those are the 2 baseline ideas for builds, is just straight Qs all the way down, or level 20 you can adjust. The only reason that I would say going this is, I mean, if you see just the possibility of doing like the damage down the line, you can melt through people so fast. So it's absolutely insane, the possibility of damage that you can do with Pierce, especially since Pierce is also going to make it to where you don't hit minions and stop. So if that combo is always going to land off. So this allows you to really blow up a single target, because no one can get in the way of it. Stuck in the Loop also allows you to blow up a single target. So let's say we do the same exact build that we did before, and we go for the bronze talons, we go the loop, we go gnome speed ahead, shifting sands, and then the loop. We start off with an E. It's another thing that we didn't do before was we didn't start off with the E. Let's complete our quests. And so essentially, say they get caught in the first trap right there. They get caught in the trap. We fire off a W, a Q, we ult, we fire off a Q. They're probably going to move by this time, and then we fire off a W, a Q, again, and then another Q, and then that's it. 10,000 damage, guys. 10,000 damage is possible, and we even assumed that they were going to be gone during one of those. So, that is the new Chromie. She's got a lot of build variety. Don't limit yourself to the builds that I showed you here. A lot of my builds is before we see any testing. It's just my guess, my assumption. I've been right a lot of times, and I've been wrong a lot of times. So these are just my guesses. I have played a lot of Chromie. She was one of the heroes I used to get to Grandmaster, and but she got changed right after I did that, so I didn't end up making a video about it. I am really excited for this rework. I think her level 20s or her level 18s are absolutely busted, every single one of them. And I think that her general kit is very powerful. I've played a decent amount of her on PTR, and she is very, very strong. And I mean, I don't know how else to say it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos. And also let me know, what builds do you think are going to be used on new Chromie?